Hello guys and gals, me Mutahar. Today's video is brought to you by Jury Duty. Oh boy, did I get the letter in my mail today. Ontario, Ministry of the Attorney General. God damn, you know the Sheriff's Office sent me this. I read it a few times and I think I'm gonna be, it's not gonna be 12 angry men, let me tell you buckos. It's gonna be one boring Mutahar. Now, hey, listen, it's part of, I live in an industrial society, so I guess I'm going to partake into it, okay? All right, even though I argue that I am too stupid, I am mentally unfit for any form of legal duty, okay? I'm crazy, all right? I'm a mental guy. Now, speaking of jury duty, let's talk about a PlayStation. Now, you might be hearing they're getting sued for $5.9 billion, which is a lot of money, ladies and gentlemen. That's a lot of cash. You know, you can do a lot with $5.9 billion. I like to gauge my money in beanbag chairs because I'm a simple man, okay? When I moved into this house, I promised myself there's going to be one television, two beanbag chairs, and a PlayStation 1 sitting in my living room. I'm a simple guy. I have simple tastes. All the money in the world wouldn't impress me whatsoever. As long as I have my PlayStation 1 and my good friends, that's all I ever need. But of course, getting back to the topic of PlayStation and lawsuits, $5.9 billion. Now, this lawsuit is brought to you by a few things, okay, which is where PlayStation breaches competition law. Now, they've got 5 points. This is brought to you by Alex Neil, all right, who is a woman that's been actually working in the world of consumer campaigns for UK consumers in general. So this is a British lawsuit, if you will. It comes from the land of Hogwarts. Now, of course, number one is Sony has a near monopoly on the sale of digital games and add-on content through its control of the PlayStation Store. True. When you buy a PlayStation device, the only store you can use is the PlayStation Store. In fact, with the PS5, that shit is baked right into the operating system as a full-on call. Number two, Sony uses its dominance to enforce strict terms and conditions on game developers and publishers. I don't really know what she means by point two so much. I think every game publisher does that. But yeah, Sony does tend to have really strict terms. I mean, the amount of censorship that you'll see on Sony's platform regarding certain games, I would see Sony definitely has a vested interest in keeping their store as beautiful as possible. Number three, hey, wait, hold on a second, get back to that point. Arab City drift cars exist, so clearly these terms aren't that goddamn strict. These terms allow Sony to set the price of digital games and in-game content and charge a 30% commission on every purchase of digital games and in-game content from the store, which is kind of an industry standard everywhere. You go to Apple, same thing. I think Valve does the same charge, Xbox and whatnot. Epic for sure, I think, does 20. Maybe they do actually less than 30%. I think Epic cut back. Point is, every store is going to charge a commission. How much these stores provide to the user because of the commissions varies, right? I would argue PlayStation does fuck all compared to Xbox or Valve, or even Epic in certain regards. Of course, you've got number four, this results in excessive and unfair prices for digital games and in-game content. Number five, these prices are all out of proportion to the cost that Sony provides these services. So yes, obviously the overhead compared to $60 per digital game, $70 now, can be a tad unproportional. Now, of course, number five can be argued in court absolutely to the ends of the earth. But number four is an interesting point. Look, it's no shock that digital game prices are fisting you. Now, I'm in support of this lawsuit. I really am. Because as somebody that is a gamer, I want a lot of you all to play video games and enjoy them. And I think pricing absolutely limits a lot of people from playing certain games. You know, charging $60 per game, $70 per game is kind of like an expected price point at this point, right? But every game, every brand new game necessarily is given that price point charge. And when sales hit, sales are important for gamers all over the world. It allows people who don't have the funds to be gaming as much as they really want to be able to pick up games on a sale and play them much more later. Now, when you look at sales in a digital storefront like Valve, like Sony, like at Microsoft, they come and go all the time. And sometimes some of these sales are insane. I've picked up games off all of these stores for 90% off at times, all right? I just bought them and I'll play them months down the road and add them to my backlog because, hey, buying a game at $5 versus, 50 is a lot better than anything else. So of course, yeah, I can see the aspect of sales and whatnot. But when it comes to digital games, the reason I'm in support of this lawsuit is for the first time ever in home consoles, such as the PlayStation mainline consoles and the Xbox consoles. These game publishers and companies are finally pushing consoles that are digital only. You can go to the store right now and buy an Xbox Series S, which is a digital console. You can go to the store and buy a PlayStation 5 Digital, which is the PlayStation 5 console, but without the Blu-ray. Now, it's argued that you save $100 and you get a slightly weaker system, I believe, for the Xbox, because the S isn't as strong as the Series X. And for the PlayStation, it's literally just you save $100 and they don't give you a Blu-ray drive. Now, I think this is a fucking scam for a lot of people. First off, $100, while it sounds like a pretty big change for the price, the problem with $100, ladies and gentlemen, if we're talking just 100, is that once you lock yourself out of having a Blu-ray drive for the PlayStation 5, you are locking yourself out of physical releases. So that means if you wanted to go play PS4 games for cheap, you can't just go to a bargain bin or eBay or various storefronts on the internet and buy games for cheap. Like, I always buy a bunch of PS4 games and PS5 games whenever they're on sale on multiple storefronts. You know, if I wanted to buy a game for, let's say, $20 right now, because EB Games is giving it for a sale, versus that same game being charged still for $60 on the PlayStation Store, yeah, of course I'm going to go get the physical copy. This is actually a really good example of physical pricing. So for instance, if you go to like online stores, you can find Dragon Quest XI S for Xbox One for like $47. But I bought the PS4 version for $33. I actually think I saved a bit more money because of like extra, rewards and whatnot. But yeah, this is like $33. Now compare this to the price you would find digitally on the PlayStation Network. This is Dragon Quest XI S, so the special, definitive edition. Now, if I go to the PlayStation Store right now, this game costs $53.49. That is, I believe, the Canadian pricing of the game. So if I look at how much money I saved, that's almost half off just me going to the physical disc. Now, obviously, when you look at the digital storefront, a lot of these games will keep their retained price of $60 months after the release. Of course, they'll go on sale from time to time, but typically, when you go on the internet, these games will stay on their $60, $70 sale digitally for a long time. And it's weird to me that a digital game that has much less overhead, you're literally paying for a license fee, right? Like a one-time lease fee. And once the servers go down, that game just magically evaporates. You look at the Wii 3DS stores, even the PlayStation 3 store was up for the chopping block. And you lose those digital sales after those servers have been removed, right? If the company is not retaining them. Which is one of the reasons why I don't go digital. The prices almost never go down in relation to physical discs, and one point you're going to lose those those digital game licenses. Now, the reason I buy physical games is not because the price is cheaper in most cases, but usually I want to own these games for the long term. When you buy a game physically and it doesn't say internet required on the box, all right, like let's say it's not Call of Duty or an MMO game, you can stick that disc into your PlayStation, install it without the internet, and play it start to finish. Sure, there may be some bugs because you didn't download a day one patch, but most games, when they go gold, when they're sent out for the discs to be printed, are mandated to be playable start to finish 1.0. You can play Cyberpunk all the way from start to finish on a 1.0 disc. And you know what? It's not fun, but it's completely playable start to finish. People have done it. You can play Dragon Quest XI without any form of internet start to finish. You can play games like Persona 5 Royale, which I'm currently playing start to finish without any internet connection or update. The reason for this is, again, those games are completed on the disc. See, a lot of misinformation that floats around on the internet is when you buy a physical disc, apparently you're only buying a license and you have to download the game off PlayStation Network. Objectively false. 95%, even more than that, are completely playable just on the disc, which is why owning physical games, in my opinion, is always better than buying these games digitally, because you actually own that physical license. It means that if PlayStation bans you from the network, or for whatever reason, like let's say that it happens, you're not completely shit out of luck with your digital game licenses. None of those are ever at risk, because you can always just run these physical licenses off of your device without the internet. That's how it works. So of course, when I'm looking at this lawsuit, it's really important to get back to it that I hope PlayStation concedes or loses in some capacity, as unlikely as it is, because this market right now, the video game market, is headed towards digital, unfortunately. I'm going to say that it's going to be another generation or two before these systems are pushing for digital ownership, because digital ultimately benefits Microsoft and Sony and any publisher, Nintendo whatsoever. Because when you own the store, you can control how much commission you're making off of it. Right now with PlayStation, there is no third-party competition. This is not like the PC market where if you don't like the sales on Steam, you can download the Epic Games Launcher and utilize sales from there. You can utilize sales from GOG. You can utilize sales from a bunch of different marketplaces on the PC. As annoying as the launchers are on PC, the ultimate benefit to them is you have a bunch of storefronts that are competing for money within each other. It's not just Valve, it's not just Epic, it's not just Microsoft, everyone's competing, which is why sales on the PC are very prevalent and sometimes, in many cases, can be very beneficial for the user. The more competition you have in a marketplace, the better it is for you, the average gamer. So obviously for PlayStation, you only have one choice: the PlayStation Network store. And of course, it's up to Sony to do whatever they want, which is ultimately when I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at this entire lawsuit, yes, games are priced absolutely disproportionately for you digitally. When you buy a $60 game digitally, you do not own that game. You own a license to the game. That's true. When you buy that same game for $60 physically, you then own a physical license to that game plus whatever's data is on it. And if that data is completely playable, 1.0 all the way from start to finish without any updates, yes, you own the game. It's why I buy many new games for the consoles physically, because while I love PC gaming, I don't agree with my library going digital. Now, of course, I understand in some cases for people who live in smaller apartments, who don't have space to store tons of physical media, yes, digital gaming works for you, and that's fine. For some people, they don't care about owning the game, they just want to play it, and who gives a fuck if I can play it 3 years from now? Digital works for you. My friend Imaru, who lives in Argentina, pays up the ass if he buys games or physically. That's why he buys his PlayStation games digitally. Games like Elden Ring, which I'm sure he would love to own a physical disc of. But he owns it completely digitally because of pricing. Now, of course, I don't really understand if this is going to go through completely for these individuals. Now, obviously, I don't actually really think, and like the pessimist in me knows that this probably won't be beneficial for these lawsuit, like these actual plaintiffs in this case, because Sony has the money and capital to fight this all the way to the ends of the earth and snuff it out. But I think in the future going forward, when it comes to video gaming, in comparison to any other market, these problems need to be addressed. Look, we're done and beyond the point of physical media after a few generations, as sad as it sounds. So at least in the digital market, there needs to be the ability to have proper competing sales, maybe multiple storefronts, maybe actual proper licenses that cannot be revoked by companies. I don't know what the solution to that to be. Maybe it's going to require some decentralized blockchain stuff. Maybe. Who knows? But when it comes to digital licensing and digital storefronts on PlayStation, Xbox, or Nintendo, this is one lawsuit that I hope to see across the entire board for every other manufacturer and producer out there. Because ultimately, if the people win in this lawsuit, it's a net benefit for everybody in the gaming sphere. Clearly, PlayStation has a monopoly on its own store and storefront. And of course, they probably should, because they're making their own product and their own hardware, and they're giving a service as well as they distribute it to you. But for people who are worried about pricing in video games, you are never going to get a good experience digitally as you would physically. Simply because in the physical sphere, there's a lot of copies floating around, and in the third-party sector, there's a lot of people who are, crushing those margins down bit by bit. You're always going to get a better physical sale than a digital sale on average. And of course, when you're buying some of these consoles, it's why I always urge, if you can, always spare money for having a physical, compatibility option, like a Blu-ray drive. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Sony lawsuit for $5.9 billion, an insane amount. And one that I hope to see in favor of the actual consumers out there, because the stuff is important. This is me, Mutahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I am out.